Hey everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host Craig Lindell, and this is a very special week for all of us at Waiting for Next Year. We decided to give our birthday an entire week because it's the 10th birthday of Waiting for Next Year, WFNYX, and in honor of that, we're doing all kinds of great things. We're bringing back some of the people that really made WFNY what it has become, helped create it. Nobody was more important to the creation of WFNY than Rick Grayshock. So he's no longer with the site, but he was 1/3 along with Scott and Andrew. And as Andrew pointed out in his While We're Waiting this morning, he was integral in really connecting all the pieces and getting everybody together. So we're going to catch up with Rick in just a minute. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the sponsorship for this week. I decided to sponsor WFNYX Week with my insurance company. When I'm not doing Waiting for Next Year stuff, I'm a super boring insurance guy. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but we sell property and casualty insurance, home, auto, business insurance in the state of Ohio mostly. We can do some contiguous states as well, but if you own a home and a car, or a home and 2 cars in the state of Ohio and you buy your insurance, we can help you. We closed about 60% of the clients that we spoke to last year, and the people that we didn't close probably learned something about their policy as well, which is kind of cool. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but that's what I really like about the insurance industry is, it's something that everybody has to have. It's a bill that people feel like is a waste of money because they hope to never have to use it. But, I do get to see the times when people do have to use their insurance. I do get to see the times where those premium dollars aren't going completely to waste. And, while we're doing it, I can help educate and give you some ideas on how to do, set up your insurance so it's less painful, less costly, and so that when it does come time to use it, that it's right and it's going to take care of you. So that's my spiel. You probably know how to get a hold of me. So yeah, you can look me up. Number is 440-247-3750. Lindell Insurance. But just ask for me. Tell them it's sports stuff. Tell them you want to talk sports with Craig. Give me a call. And then I'll drag you into some super boring insurance talk. Now, enough of the boring talk. Here is Rick Grayshock.
Waiting for next year. Waiting for next year.
On the other end of the line, Rick Grayshock. How's it going, sir?
It's going fine, Craig. How are you?
I'm flabbergasted that it's been 10 years since Waiting for Next Year began, about 9.5 since I got to know you, and
yeah,
I don't know, man. It's very strange. So first of all, how you been?
I've been good. I guess it's been a few years, anyways, a couple of years since I've been on the site and on the podcast. So things are good. Life is good.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange because so much has happened since you've been around. The Browns have been even worse. You probably never would have thought that would have been possible. That the Browns could be even worse with all the stuff that we covered and all the things that you wrote about the Browns over the years. You somehow dodged the bullet.
I dodged the bullet. Well, I guess. I mean, still waiting for them to even be some semblance of a respectable ball club. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it, and the Cavs won the title since the last time I was on WFNY. So, I mean, that's big, right? That's good.
That's the biggest and the best. And I saw the picture of you and your family at the parade, so you didn't miss that.
Yeah, absolutely not. That was a guarantee. And funny thing, I actually had I had an accident that summer, and my ankle was fractured in 2 spots. when they were on their finals run, and so I was actually at that parade on crutches with a broken ankle.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I was not going to miss that parade. Once in my life, man, I had to go to that parade. So
It's so crazy because I actually didn't feel that way about the parade. Like I'm super.
Really?
I went to Game 6. I was super happy that they won and super happy that they had a parade, but like I did not need to be there. It sounded like that was just too wacky scenario
Yeah.
for me to commit to.
I don't know. I think it has. I mean, I'm sure it has to do like back with my childhood. Like, I had seen pictures of like the Browns championship parades, downtown, and I remember, watching as a kid when teams would win championships and they would have like the T-shirts and the Sports Illustrated issue would come out, right away, and I was like, oh, we got to have that thing, because our team just won, and I would see on, the news or whatever, the parade, the ticker tape, and I just always thought, oh, so that's what you do when you win something, you get to go celebrate. And so I always, and again, another funny, I hate parades. Like, I don't go to parades. I don't go to, the whatever, the Memorial Day parade or the 4th of July. I just can't get into parades at all. But there was no chance I was missing the first Cleveland sports parade, and the inflated however many millions of people were going to be there. Darn it, I was going to be one of them.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm totally with you on any annually scheduled parade. They have them on Memorial Day in Chagrin Falls and July 4th, and even so I did a couple St. Patty's Day parades in high school because that was the thing to do, and I don't remember ever enjoying any of them.
Yeah, I was in several. Like, when I was in high school, I was part of like our color guard, and I like our ROTC color guard, and I had to like march in parades and be a part of all these, and maybe that's where my disdain came from, because just like being forced to be there or something. But yeah, no, that was just such a cool event, and yeah, I mean, honestly, that title it really did make a difference in my sports fandom. I think we always joked, just one before I die, and but I tell you what, that title has sustained me through, whatever bad sports has come our way since. I'm really able to, kind of step back and have a little bit of perspective and say, hey, you know what? I was at a parade, with my daughter and my wife, and, screaming and cheering and got a big old handful of confetti in a plastic bag, saved with, some scrapbook stuff. And so that really has, made a difference for me, at least in how I watch sports anymore.
Well, and it's interesting to hear you say that because of how entrenched you were in the sports scene with Waiting for Next Year, and it's not better or worse or anything else. It's just different when you're so married to these teams the way we have been as part of Waiting for Next Year over the years. And I think, not to the degree of maybe like a Terry Pluto or somebody who's done it
Sure.
for their full-time gig, but we got a little taste of that. And so it's interesting to hear you say that as somebody who spent huge amounts of time and energy like really covering this team on a professional level.
Sure. Well, and I mean, after I left Waiting for Next Year, I worked for 2 years for Fox Sports Ohio on their website. And, so that didn't go away when I walked away from Wolfney.
Sure.
It was, I was paid to do that. And so, yeah, it's almost like to some degree, there's a switch that's been flipped. And now, I mean, Craig, when you click onto Twitter, and you see, and you're running a website, a Cleveland sports website, when you see anything come up about anyone involved with the team, or somebody, a rumor that's gone up, the first thing that jumps into your mind is, oh, well, is this serious? Is this something that we need to get somebody to write about? Is this something that needs posted or discussed somehow. Do I need to get a podcast guest together to talk about this? And I don't have that anymore. Like that it doesn't even enter my brain now when I see something jump up that I think, that's big, or that's an important news item or something. And I think partially the years of having to cover Johnny Manziel with Fox Sports Ohio may have, put that absolute bitterness in my mouth of what is newsworthy and what isn't, so to speak.
Well,
when it comes to the teams.
It's interesting that you got to see that on the strictly professional side, because
Sure.
we were doing it as more hobbyists, and yeah, we carry ourselves like professionals a lot of the time, but it's a totally different ball game. I see this, I see how Ben Axelrod has to cover things at WKYC and all our friends at Cleveland.com over the years, and you did it at Fox Sports Ohio on the website as well. But it's changed a lot. Even at Waiting for Next Year, we don't cover that stuff the way we used to, because when we started, this better than anybody, when we started Waiting for Next Year, we were the only ones grabbing those snippets and putting them under a microscope. And then shortly thereafter, sports web producers at the Cleveland.com bloggers kind of they became and started doing what we had done, and that was even before USA Today started For the Win, which became just a factory of what should have been retweets. And so the whole market changed. We don't even really find ourselves covering the waterfront the way we used to, because so many of the posts that we used to do that were valuable for a time are now retweets, or
Sure, yeah.
they just don't deserve 300 words or 400 words or whatever it's going to turn out to be.
Well, and it's not like we were like some groundbreaking philosophers either in this. Really, I think that was kind of exploding around us as we were doing it, but we were just doing it with the Cleveland slant and the Cleveland slant only.
Yes.
But like a lot of these other big sites, and honestly a lot of these big sites that are no longer around were doing this, and we were just like the go-to Cleveland. And when something big happened in Cleveland, we'd get picked up. And these things, and that's the thing you talk about. It was a mandate when I was at Fox Sports. If something happened with Manziel, you had to have something up within half hour, of your shift, because it was considered, newsworthy. We would get Fox Sports National would pick up what we did if it had anything to do with Manziel. So, it was just a weird time, but certainly something I'm glad, so to speak, I'm not necessarily in that particular rat race anymore.
Well, and almost nobody's in that rat race
Sure.
anymore. It's crazy to think how big of a priority it was, how much of a mandate it was, and now it basically doesn't even exist. There's no value to those eyeballs or clicks anymore, and certainly that's represented in the bottom line financially at Waiting for Next Year in 2018. It's just a good thing nobody ever really did what we Nobody ever did what we do for money. So.
Yeah, I guess so. It's interesting too, because when we started, Twitter wasn't a thing.
No.
And so, you were going to every sports site you can think of to get any kind of, news or rumors or whatever, because it wasn't all like put into one place. Like, I remember, what was it, Yardbarker? Was that the place where everybody went to like vote up or vote down stories, and you tried to have links there or whatever? Gosh,
it was like Dig for sports.
Yeah.
Even Dig doesn't really exist for what it was.
Sure. Yeah. And it was almost like a Reddit kind of thing or something. But I just remember having to go to all those different places and post links to stories we wrote so that we could, hopefully get a couple people to look at them. But, we did it because we wanted to, and we loved doing it at the time. And that's that was, that's why we started, because we wanted to share stuff and talk about stuff. And, I'll put the Waiting for Next Year online community up against any community out there when it comes to being, passionate and knowledgeable about, our subject matter, the teams that we love, and just, the discussion, and really the way that the commenters and the community, policed itself and moderated itself. I don't think that existed in many places, and we were very fortunate to really lock onto that and be part of it.
Very fortunate. But you remember, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. We had our problems with those comment sections.
Yeah.
But guess what? I'm just thinking about this while you're talking. Like, I believe that all the tough times we had in the comment sections was when we were maybe kind of on the bordering edge of posting stuff that we shouldn't have been posting, or the over posting, or stuff. We were bringing in casual people and not serving the core audience at those times, probably.
Sure. We were learning.
Yeah, we were.
None of us had a background in this by any stretch, and so we were learning. Like, oh, I guess I shouldn't post something like that. Or I guess, I really need to think that through a couple more hours before I just write it up and throw it on the website. I remember several times where I would write something, I got this great take on this, or I got this great slant on this, and I'd write it up and I'd post it, and like within the first 2 or 3 comments, somebody would say, "Hey, you're an idiot, this." And I go, oh yeah, that. I should have thought of that.
I should have let that bake for a little longer.
Yeah, exactly. I needed to check the temperature of the oven on that one, because it didn't quite bake.
Well, I'm just happy to say that I never had any posts like that, no takes like that in my history. All mine were perfect.
Well, that's why we were fortunate to get you, I guess.
Oh man, I cringe. I say this all the time. Like, I'm afraid of my archives. Like, I live in fear of my archives. I just hope that I keep creating enough new stuff, and the nature of a sports blog is that our stuff is going to be dated. Like, who wants to read my opinion of Brandon Whedon or Pat Shurmur today?
Right. Exactly. And it's funny, because I started covering high school sports for the Daily Record down here in Worcester last year, and I had to submit
Did you show those 17-year-olds who's boss?
What's that?
I said, did you show those 17-year-olds? Writing about high school kids. I'm just joking that you smashed them.
Oh yeah, no. It was like my editor was. He said, "Hey, I need to see some examples of your work." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, here's." Let me think, what are some non-Johnny Manziel pieces at Fox Sports Ohio I can send him to? And what are the pieces that, Waiting for Next Year that I really want to send him to? And, because you're right. You think, oh man, looking back 5 years ago, is that really something that was necessary, or that I'm, super proud of? Like, I could see myself just saying, yeah, just go click on anything of mine at Waiting for Next Year, and, just afraid what might come up. But yeah, it was, like I say, it was a learning experience. We were getting our journalism degree, so to speak. Not that any of us could be really compared, except, possibly Scott, to someone who actually has a journalism job. But yeah, it was a very exciting time.
Well, unless you count technical writing, I think I could have been a really good technical writer, Rick.
I'll give you that.
Let me write. I would have wrote the best instruction manuals you ever read.
Well, if you remember, there was supposed to be a book. Do you remember the book that we were all supposed to take chapters on, and that never exactly got around.
It fell apart in the editorial process.
Yeah. Something like that. But I will say that I learned. I did learn a lot while I was writing for Waiting for Next Year. Whether it was just in the basic, how do you construct a story, to what's the best way to tell a story? What's how to be somewhat more observant. And I mean, we kind of joke or we talk about professionalism, but those years that I spent going to Berea, really did kind of teach me some things, and a little bit about humility and a little bit about trying to fit in a world that wanted no part of me. So that was interesting.
I get very uncomfortable in new situations. So, like, even to the point when I started running races, if I knew that the starting line was going to be here, and I would drive and check everything out on Friday for a race that was happening on Sunday. And when it came to covering the Browns, or a couple of times when I covered the Indians, there was no place to go do homework. And we, as many nice people as we've had, there were no like natural mentors that we could really lean on to tell us, well, this, that, and the other thing. It was so much trial by fire. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have been so intimidated, because there's no shame in being the new guy, but I just didn't want to come off like the new guy or the blogger.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I really had to step back and realize, was that, like some of the people that honestly, I mean, would never give me the time of day when I was covering the team. And I don't mean from the Browns. I mean the other, professional journalists there. Some of the people that would never give me the time of day, I had to stop and think, like, this is their livelihood. This is how, they're feeding their family, they're putting their kids through college. And with the instability of, the newspaper world, and, the rise of the independent, internet website, here we were given credentials to come and cover this team and sit alongside them in this media room. And, we had to have seemed like a threat, even though that was clearly not our intention or our goal or whatever, but, here's this guy from this independent website, and all of a sudden he's sitting there. And so, I had to really think about, what would I think? How would I feel if I had, gone to school for years and gotten the high school beat at a newspaper and worked my way up, so to speak, to the pro teams in town. And how would I feel if all of a sudden people were just showing up, from the internet, who did not have journalism degrees or. No,
and I think that's a really good point. But by the time, it was nice though, because I think by the time they got to know us, and I think the podcast helped a lot, although I haven't really kept up with it's really hard for me to schedule a bunch of beat reporters nowadays, just because of my own personal scheduling. But I think the podcast helped a lot too, where I would have Tom Reed on regularly, and we would have Terry Pluto on, and even back in the days, I would talk to Nate Ulrich and Dan Lobby, and by the way, there's nothing against those guys that they're not on the show anymore. I'm just too busy to schedule people during the day anymore. But I think that was a bridge builder where people were like, oh, they want to like hang out with us. They don't want to replace us.
Sure. And let's be clear right away. I mean, the ones that you just mentioned are the ones that went out of their way to be nice to us.
Oh, for sure.
When we were in Berea or, downtown covering the Indians or the Cavs or whatever. I mean, those, you just rattled off some high quality people. And those are certainly ones that I do, when I think back on that time, especially that time in Berea, I think fondly of some conversations that I had, that I was fortunate to get to have with, say, Tom Reed, or even with, Dan. We've known Dan for a long time, and Nate. Nate was
10
good.
years plus.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. I mean, our first moment of doing anything remotely associated with the teams was probably when Dan Lobby was at Cleveland.com, and he was like the digital, he was like the social media, so to speak, guy before there really was a social media person. And he asked if I would come and either hold camera or hold microphone for him during a Cavs playoff run, and which included, a media pass to get in to help him, like record sound.
Yeah,
And
the first set, the first Cavs playoff runs before LeBron left the first time. So that's how early it was.
Exactly.
And it was incredible
It
because if we didn't have any guided tour of Berea, he gave us the guided tour of Quicken Loans Arena.
Yeah, and Dan was phenomenal. I went and I was living in Lima at the time, Lima, Ohio. So like I remember driving like 2 hours or something just to get there to be able to set up and help him, and then drive 2 hours home after the game, and that was exciting. And Barry McBride too gave us a shot with the OBR. I know he gave me that was the first time I was ever in Berea, as far as like on the on the other side of the rope, was because Barry asked me to go and write a couple pieces about the offensive line way back in like 2008, 2009. And so
yeah, Barry's always been one of the biggest supporters.
He has, yeah. I mean, we could rattle off several of them. Terry Pluto has always been great to us, and certainly appreciate Terry. But
by the way, I will always tell anybody who will listen that like the pinch me moment of my life at Waiting for Next Year was going to training camp one day and just being the third wheel in a conversation between Terry Pluto and Les Levine. Like other kids grow up dreaming about talking to athletes or getting autographs. Like I grew up reading those and listening and watching guys like that, and like getting to not only knowing Les Levine, but getting to sit there and just have like sports conversation with him on the sidelines and having him like make you laugh. Like that there's nothing greater. That if there's one thing that I could kind of boil it all down to, not that I could, that might be it.
Yeah. I remember I had a moment. So, gosh, before I was credentialed to do the Browns, I was at the what's the VIP, the food thing they do, the Taste of the Browns. I was at the Taste of the Browns,
which is a really awful name, by the way.
yeah, it's good food, but it was a really awful name. But I was at Taste of the Browns one year, and I took my wife, and we were just enjoying being able to be there, and in Cleveland Stadium there. It was a gorgeous night, and we walked outside into the into the actual stadium part where there was seating. I was looking up, and the press box was right there, and we had been trying for 2 years to get credentials to cover a game. They'd led us to training camp, for a few days here or there, let us bring a photographer, let us do some things. But I remember looking up at that press box and saying, I'm going to cover a game from inside that box one day here. And it was the very next season that I got the full season credential and was able to go to all the home games. And I was, that was blown away. So that season, I'm sitting in the press box. It was one of the first games, and I try not to get very starstruck with athletes, and obviously the longer you're around them, the easier that is. But we were playing the Ravens, and Ozzie Newsome walked past me, and when I was a kid, Ozzie Newsome was, he was it as far as a Browns player. It was Ozzie Newsome, and then Bernie Kosar. But I remember seeing Ozzie Newsome walk past me and just think, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, why am I in the same spot with Ozzie Newsome? And that was probably my Les Levine moment for you.
Well, it's incredible. It's very strange just to think that we've been doing it this long. The number of people who've been in and out of Waiting for Next Year and gone on to do other things. It's really phenomenal. But it's funny that the story that you told about driving 2.5 hours from Lima to cover a Cavs playoff game is like, that's kind of Waiting for Next Year in a nutshell, because like so many of the things that we've done
to cover a game that I was not being paid for.
Exactly. To do the things that we've done with the site over the years, basically as a nonprofit,
Hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. But that's, because we were fans first. That's kind of what's driven the site from time zero, moment one.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like, because normal people wouldn't keep doing it. Right? Like people that were doing this as if it
Do
were
you know
a
how many
job
people
would
ask
have,
me
would
when
have
I'm
quit a
gonna?
long time ago.
Do you know how many people ask me
What's
when
that?
I'm gonna stop?
How many of them live in your house?
None, none.
Yeah.
If
Well,
any
that's
of them
good.
lived in my house, I would have stopped already.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's crazy. But as I've said a lot of times that for me, like the experiences that I got to have because of, and not the work that I did, but the work that everybody on our team did that afforded me the opportunities to go and do things. I'd have never in a million years gotten to do these things. And honestly, like, we couldn't, we don't just get to pack up and go to many games. Honestly, for us, it's an investment when we get to spend our money that way. And so, the amount of activities and games and things that I've been able to cover, because just to get in to see it. I got to go to Cavs playoff games. I can't afford to go to Cavs playoff games, but that was exciting. That was just a thrill a minute to be able to be there and to see these things live. I was there covering the night that LeBron hit that shot, over the Magic, to win that game at the very last second. And I'll always remember how deafeningly loud the cue got when that ball went through. That was such an exciting time. And just so many more events that were so special that I got to do that usually a guy like me doesn't get to do. So I'll forever be grateful to the site.
Yeah, man. Moments, experiences, and people too. Like I have no business knowing. I probably have no business knowing somebody like you. I probably have no business knowing Andrew from Columbus. There's so many. There are people who pass through the site who I never actually met in person. So, but I feel like I've got all these friends from over the years, and pretty much all of them are still friends that I could text or email or ask a question to this day, and that's pretty phenomenal when you think about it.
Yeah, and it is like I said before, there's the community of say readers and commenters, and then there's the community of, I guess, staff, for lack of a better term.
We'll call them staff.
And then, sure. And then the community of, like the guys we were talking about, the Dan Lobbies and the Vince, Grezagorics and these guys that we got to know and come alongside and befriend. There's several different communities that I guess I'm thankful I was included in.
Well, a lot of it is your doing. You were the moral compass, helping to direct the site. A lot of the tone, and yeah, we may have gone a little bit PG-13 over the years, but we never went hard R. So a lot of your guidance still lives on to this day.
Well, I'm grateful that you guys think of it that way. I remember when we were starting it up again, of sites around us and what they were doing.
Aaron Andrews.
Aaron Andrews, yes.
It was
sure.
Aaron Andrews pictures, girl of the week, bikini girl of the day.
Sure. Yeah, and that got, let's face it, that got clicks.
I love a bikini girl. Don't get me wrong, but we didn't need it on our side.
Yeah. No, we set out to create a community of, Cleveland sports fans, and that's what we got, and that's what came, and that's the fact that it's still that way is exciting. It's really great. I did a chance to read Andrews while we're waiting this morning, and I was touched just by some of the things that he talked about with us, and it was the formation of waiting for next year was just so, it was just so loose. And hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do this? And we did because, again, like we weren't expecting, but maybe 100 people to ever read the thing. So, the fact that it got to the point that it did, amazed us. Like we shattered all of our expectations like month 1 and 2. And so after that happened, it was like, well, now what? Now what do we do? We got to set the bar higher. And so I think, as Scott and Andrew and certainly you can attest, it's just been a constant refocus and all right, what next? What next? What next? What's the next thing? And trying to keep in mind our audience and trying to keep in mind our strengths and, certainly just feel very fortunate to have been part.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time, man, because, my memory is only so good. Anybody's memory only catches a small piece or their own version of the events, and I'm really happy to get your version of memory lane too, because it wouldn't be a complete trip down memory lane without talking to you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and hope that maybe you'll catch up with me for a year 15 celebration.
Who knows? Maybe before then.
Maybe even before then. Yeah, if you ever want to talk, like Worcester High School sports, I'm your guy.
Oh, yeah, that's the one thing that I have to ask you about before we leave.
Oh, okay.
So you told me in an email or a text or something that you did not watch a single Browns game this year.
I did not. I listened to one on the radio. It was the last game of the season because we were driving down to my in-laws' house for Christmas. And that's the first game I listened to on the radio. I can't, Craig, I really can't explain to you that how much I just have this bitter, ugly taste in my mouth about the fact that the Browns are still a joke in this league. And I can't remember. I was having a conversation with somebody one time and we were just talking about sports and my interests and what I liked. And they were like, why do you continue to be a fan of this team? And it just really, like people have said that before. I've read that before, but it really just stuck in my claw that time. Like, gosh, why am I spending this time? Like, why am I miserable on purpose, every Sunday? And I just decided, you know what? There may be a time when they're able to turn it around because teams are able to turn it around and actually win the freaking Super Bowl in a couple of years, as we've seen. Maybe when they're able to turn around, maybe I'll be able to go back. But right now, I just can't do it. I really can't. So yeah, I watch most of the Cavs games, and obviously cheer and root for them. And I love watching the Indians still. But yeah, I can't watch the Browns right now. I just can't do it.
Well, and lucky for you, you've given yourself that luxury. I just pawn it off on some new guys, Joe Gilbert and and so, a host of new guys pick up. So I actually missed a couple games this year too, where I did watch the condensed version the next morning. But when you can watch an NFL game in 22, 28 minutes, whatever it turns out to be.
Yeah, that game rewind is a nice nice feature.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it so much, and hopefully we don't wait a full 5 years to talk to you again. But if you're not watching the Browns, there might not be anything to talk about. It'd be like bringing Brian Spaeth on. He retired after the Cavs championship. He doesn't watch anything.
Yeah, see, I'm telling you, that's just a healthy attitude.
All right, thanks so much, Rick. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Greg.